panel we have Ms. Priyanka Bhairati, co-founder IntelliQuant AI. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome her with a round of applause. Ms. Priyanka. May I please invite Ms. Ruchika Surekha, founder and CEO, Tavara. Ladies and gentlemen, let's treat her with a round of applause. Some more energy, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. My smile speaks. I invite Dr. Renu Sharma, founder and CEO, Hilara IVF. Thank you for the round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Dr. Renu. It is a pleasure to invite Ms. Divya Multani Jain, Director, Leap Ahead India. Ms. Divya. She's not here? Okay. And finally, may we please invite Ms. Garima Seth, Vice President, Value Bridge Capital, to join us on stage. Ms. Garima, ladies and gentlemen. We have a diverse panel, ladies and gentlemen, that brings together entrepreneurship, investment, operations, and domain expertise across sectors. I invite Mr. Prakhar now to take this discussion forward. Thank you so much.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, I believe, would Divya be joining? Okay. Anyway, so we start now. This panel, essentially, it's a privilege to be here amidst all of you and host this distinguished list of panelists that we have from diverse areas. It is a moment when we look at the Viksit Bharat narrative and we understand how our future is getting shaped by resilience, creativity and technological advancement. And we also saw very recently the India AI Impact Summit, which came into being in the last month. And we saw global leaders convening in India, deliberating, mooting, sharing insights about varied aspects of AI. And we also are operating in the backdrop of the entire India AI mission, which itself carves the way for various aspects of leveraging AI for enabling performance enhancement, citizen experiences, and leading way for our different user groups and getting efficiencies across various value chains across India and globe. The moment here in terms of AI shaping and the founders we have here, who in their journeys are actually pairing purpose with product, ethics with execution, and empathy with scale. So we have 4 distinguished founders among us who are driving this, and not only them, much like the work they are doing, we also have several other innovators and founders in this space who are actually redefining innovation, which is not only driven by innovation alone, but by intent, intelligence, which is not only algorithm anymore, but also understanding, leadership, which is not only defined by position, but also deep purpose. And I believe, as we go and proceed ahead, the leadership in the AI realm would actually be driven not only by the leaders, but also by the governance framework, by the entire ecosystem, which would provide access, trust, and purpose. So we'll start very quickly with our first panelist, Priyanka Bhairati, co-founder IntelliQuant AI, who herself is building ERP integrated AI-driven platforms for real-time risk and intelligent decisions, proving world-class innovation is powered by vision, not geography. So over to Priyanka Bhairati now. With her, we'll be essentially delving deep into various aspects of the AI model that she has been developing, especially specifically in the realm of finance and audit services, and primarily we'll get into the questions from there on. So welcome, Priyanka.
Thank you.
So very quickly, we would want to get into the
The utmost priority to any organization or any people who are using those platforms available on the internet to use AI for their finance. So
data privacy and also is done in an ethical manner. We get into the next question. So, how do you foresee the workforce actually evolving in the next 3 to 5 years when AI actually comes in the picture? How does the finance and the technology interplay operate, and how does it implicate the workforce who would be working in this landscape?
So I would see that in next 3 to 4 years, people would be more into an intellectual task rather than just making a verification, which typically a finance and audit people do, right? Their task would be converted into more strategical thinking, risk awareness, and asking the strategic question from a stakeholder, rather than juggling weeks for data crunching and taking out the insight from that. We are not here to replace any human from a AI. I would say the people will become more intelligent through AI, and it will be a tool for them to take the strategic decisions.
So, when people look at your journey, they essentially look at the organization that you're building. Beyond the organization, what would you stand for, and what are the core value systems that essentially drive the work that you're bringing, integrating to such delicate areas of technology and finance?
Okay, so if I tell my background, I'm coming from a tier 2 city, coming from a very traditional background, and I'm a chartered accountant by profession, and coming into a technology part, definitely a difficult part for me. I have researched a lot, I would say, and apart from my company, the core value which I define, because I always have a curiosity that how we can inbuild technology in the finance, because currently this finance segment is something, for them the technology is really at a nascent stage, right? And we are providing the intersection that what can be built through technology, what we can automate, where we can predict what happened next rather than getting that what has already happened. So this is why I think that the core value comes into that, how on a daily basis we can think how we can build technology into the finance.
That's a fantastic, addition to this discussion. While we'll be covering the aspect of tier 2 and tier 3 and what kind of ecosystem lies there and what are the roadblocks that all our founders who are sitting here on the stage actually come across, and what essentially lies for us in terms of the larger set of 4,800 plus urban local bodies that we have pan-India. So we'll be covering that part. Meanwhile, we will now move to Dr. Renu Sharma, who is the founder and CEO Elara IVF. She's an architect of an ethical, transparent and affordable IVF model. And she's bringing advanced patient-centered reproductive care closer to families with dignity and trust. So we will be quickly, exploring various aspects of this very nuanced domain around IVF, fertility, and also understanding how does AI play the role in the current ecosystem and what essentially lies ahead. So, my first question to you would be about what ethical or personal dimensions of life do you see that gets touched upon while you are actually building an AI model for as delicate space as IVF?
Good afternoon, everyone. In IVF, there are multiple tools we are using, especially time-lapse imaging, and AI can assist, analyze the data of patients, age, AFC, the previous cycle records, their hormonal profile, and they can tailor a program according to the patients that we offer them, that cut the cost of patients first, and second, that reduce the risk of OHS, that is ovarian hyperstimulation. That is the biggest risk in IVF sector. And yes, ethical concern is AI somehow data privacy is a must in IVF sector and the medical industry. So where we are so keen that should be protected by system.
So, if we would want to look at a very critical part of IVF, whether it's AI or not AI, how do we actually understand and maybe enable the success rate around IVF by deploying the AI layer to it?
So I told you before, AI can analyze the data of patient, age, AFC, and their hormonal profile, their previous cycle records. So AI tailored a program that is personalized for the patient. So by this we can get good quality of eggs, good quality of embryos, and now if we have good quality of embryos and eggs, then it will transfer in the patient, then the result will be better, the outcome will be better. And there's a time-lapse imaging system. There we can see the real monitoring of embryo development in a real time. Are the embryos growing in good condition? It is achieving their milestone on time, and is it a good quality embryo or not? So it is a big decision-making tool for embryologists and doctors too. So it increases fertilization rate as well as outcome.
Great. If you want to also delve deep into the other aspects of health industry, and if you can allude maybe in a couple of minutes about what other roles you feel AI would actually play in the health industry.
So medical industry are taking initiative in AI like chat box where we can consult the patient, we can follow the patient, AI chat box, and diagnosis tools are there. There's a CASA, there are machinery that can analyze us from morphology, morphokinetics, and it's a good or not. So diagnostic tool is consulting tool, and yes, decision-making tools.
Thank you so much. That was really insightful. Right, from actually getting into the diagnosis of it, and then basis the diagnosis, predicting and operating in a space which is actually brings in varied emotions, also blends technology with this ecosystem, and also brings about a lot of transformative experience and has a tremendous potential as you rightly pointed out, not only in the IVF space but also in the medical industry at large, where you can look at various deployments of AI, LLMs, and different ML models, actually enabling certain findings, insights that could actually predict or help mitigate the issues that might arise later in time. So thank you so much, Dr. Reenu, for insightful points on this. We'll now move to our next panelist. So we will be moving to Ruchika Sureka. I'm sorry, there are a couple of them who are not here. We have missed hearing from them.
Good afternoon, everyone.
She is a founder and CEO of Tora, a fairly young organization and very dynamic. She is essentially leading and building an IP-led sales, I would say, portfolio, which essentially aligns the buyers and sellers and put them on one plane. And of course, using and leveraging AI and its various capabilities. So we will now be deliberating on specific parts of her journey and how did actually this idea emerge. So before we get into this idea, we would want to understand, Ruchika, coming from, I believe, a legal background, where actually you did your graduation. Then actually getting in this space, what actually brought that idea? What was the tipping point? And if you can allude to how did AI actually got infused in your solution?
Sure. So I started my career long back as a writer for companies where I was using ways to make them sell their product or service. Marketing was, I come from a legal background, did not really continue with my college for long. But understanding how sales actually works, there are a lot of variables. A customer decides how will you buy their product on multiple areas. So it could be some financial decisions, it could be some geographical decisions, it could be some personal reasons. But as a company, it's very difficult to tap into hundreds of those variables and then decide, okay, this is the right customer and I should waste or actually spend or invest my time on them. But to decide that, there are sales representatives, there are managers, there are founders. Now, if it's a big ticket client, there would be a founder spending time because obviously it matters a lot if sales increases. But if it's a small ticket client and you're still spending time on them, how do you actually differentiate between those two categories of audience? So I was very deep into sales as a strategy for the last 6 years, and understanding real estate, consultancy and manufacturing, understood that sales is not just lead generation through performance marketing or lead generation through your cold calling. It's a very long strategic game which a lot of people will only understand if you read the patterns. And now using AI, everybody knows AI is a pattern game. Like AI helps you recognize the pattern. Now today if you have a ChatGPT or Claude, all it does is reads your pattern. And it becomes better as an individual that you are also not. So sales is a game of pattern like AI is, and it reads the pattern of humans. So what Twara does there is that it reads the pattern, matches it to the right consumer, and then sells the product. So the idea emerged from this one gap that there are variables in sales and you can only tap into the right customer if you have read that pattern right. If someone actually wants to buy it and from what platform. Someone is not comfortable using WhatsApp and you're selling them on WhatsApp, they would end up ghosting you. Let's say if they are good on email or on call. So AI helps you detect that pattern and then take a call that, okay, this is the right way to approach and this is how often you should approach and what should be my CTA, call to action, to actually deal with it. So that was the origin of it.
Fantastic. Would you also want to delve deep into, a typical user persona of a sales representative, and how does your solution actually help that particular persona meet the ends better?
Sure. In any given organization, there are multiple layers of doing a sales. First, you do an intro call. And then you understand that, okay, now I've done my introduction as an organization. Now, how do I go forward with it? So where AI would really do a good job there is that intro is done, now it starts building the persona. So for example, you're selling it to a real estate individual and you've started to build it forward. So that person gave you a query of he wants a co-working space which has XYZ amenities, and he has given you all the brief. Now as a sales individual, your only job is to verify what AI is doing. So it builds the persona of that broker or that query, make sure that it matches with the right product. So for example, you have multiple price ranges that you're offering. One beautiful thing about AI today is that it's a best solution to provide which never forgets. So it has a capacity to restore so much of information and then keep reinforcing the same, that your user will feel like, okay, this has everything that is being taken care of. So sales rep basically just sits and monitors what is happening in your sales, and just within a couple of clicks understands that, okay, these are the processes, this is what I'm selling, and this is the reward. So suggested replies is obviously a thing on mails that we do. But Twara as a system that we have built is also after an understanding that a job of sales representative is to sell, not to convince the user also that it is a beneficial product. That is a job that Twara generally solves.
Great, I think that was very insightful. If you can also allude to what stage does a company actually get in touch with you if they want to collaborate?
So generally, when a company has a lot of data, we now and then speak about how data is the weapon in today's century, and if a company has a lot of volume, so we deal in a couple of industries like real estate, e-commerce, manufacturing and consulting. Our major audience comes from real estate and manufacturing because they have so much of database with them. Now, let's say you have only 1 lakh of database, but you still are not using it up to its optimum utilization. Let's say you downloaded hundreds of leads from Apollo, that okay, this is my right audience. What do you do with it? You basically probably will do a cold outreach. Apollo has these systems where you can just cold outreach, bulk of email, MailChimp, all of that. But how do you actually close them? So we were actually talking to a recruitment company where they match resumes with their openings. Now, you can just go through individual resumes or you can match them. So the matching engine that we have built is to actually just match the right product with the right offering. It could be any kind of match. So even if you have 100 of data, if you can close 4 of them, it's a good deal for you. So a stage where you have downloaded databases, data hub, and you are not able to utilize them to its optimum level, that's where we come in. And for that matter, any company which has a lot of volume in data, today AI is there for them to actually simplify and optimize it moreover. So that's where we come in.
Great. So your product, essentially your firm has an IP over it, right? How do you ensure that it is universally accessible, and what is the premium that somebody has to actually leverage to be able to use it?
So we are fairly new in the market, 5 months into the actual industry that we have started. But one thing that we have time and again tried to achieve is to make it into a mass product, because it's just very simple. If you have something, you go to Twara and then you just access it, if that answers the question.
Great, thank you. So we'll move to the last but the most important in terms of actually, where the buck actually starts, where the funding actually comes in frame of reference, where the needle actually starts moving, where a lot of eyes are actually cleared eventually. So moving to Garima Seth, who is the Vice President, Value Bridge Capital. She is a discerning investor who pairs financial rigor with strategic empathy. We'll be understanding various aspects of a funder's mindset and how does AI, not as a bubble but actually a formidable force, is perceived from a funder's point of view. So quickly getting into few of the questions, and then we will of course be opening the floor for all of you to ask questions, and then of course we'll take it forward from there. So how do you actually distinguish between a startup which is actually an AI algorithm, LLM based startup, and a labeled AI startup? And what are the KPIs or distinguishing factors you actually use?
Good afternoon, everyone. And today I come here with the lens of early stage investment bankers who have almost closed 50 plus transactions across different companies, including AI companies, and have interacted with 100 plus founders building emerging technologies. So, as Prakhar rightly said, AI is not just a label now. AI is a structural shift. And anyone and everyone who's building companies, I see it could be content, it could be consumer, then we have deep tech, we have enterprise. AI needs to be embedded within the workflows. So if we have to talk about a real company working on AI, I would say it doesn't begins with the technology. It begins with the problem itself. So business problem is still larger than the technology you're building. And the capital being put in the businesses is not on intelligence, it's not on how automated the things are. It is about how expensive the problem is, how deep the problem is, and how recurring the problem is. So the real AI companies, if we have to talk about, have to be embedded within the workflows of these companies. It has to be deep. And since Prakhar did speak about LLM and data, of course, there are various ways in which AI companies are being built. Not every company can be built on proprietary LLM. This is expensive also. So what we are looking at, even if you're building an application, even if it is built as a wrapper over, of course there is different ways in which it would be valued, in which it would be looked at. But how important your company becomes and how do we evaluate how important the company becomes is how keen the customer is, how keen is he to pay for what you are offering, and which budget line are you there? Is that for enterprises, is that an experimental money, and if their budget goes here and there you will be offsided, or is it actually a solution that really matters to them, that sits inside their workflows, that sits inside their sales pipeline, that sits inside their decision-making functions, as Dr. Renu mentioned, and that sits inside the sales cycle of the company. So if AI as a tool is increasing your productivity by 10%, good enough. I have increased my productivity by 25%. Students are increasing their productivity by certain percentage. But in case your offering is actually helping companies reduce cost by 30-40%, it's opening up a new revenue stream. That is what a real AI company, I would say, is from the lens of an investor, is interesting enough.
That's a very reasonable and a very pragmatic approach towards looking at the nascent companies, or I would say the nascent ideas which actually take shape and then become a company and a story. Because AI being looked at as an enabler and as a facilitator more than actually being the entire optics of it is pivotal to making financial decisions, like you rightly highlighted. And we will now want to understand categorically, because we have three distinguished other founders on the stage who are driving their respective domains. So how do you actually, how does the industry or the investment space look at the women founders in the AI realm, and what specific things that drives the discussions in boardrooms when it is investing in a women AI startup?
So this is a very interesting question for me, and I've been working in this industry for almost 7-8 years now. and I am specifically always more excited to work with women founders. Of course, and I'm talking about a global lens here. I'm talking because India is, I think, one of the most important country if we look at the global lens right now. So there are three things. One is very interesting. Investors are now have a new way, or they have understood and they have figured out that women founders who building companies and backed by AI also, they bring a very interesting perspective while they're building company. One is they are more capital efficient. I don't want to point out men for being inefficient, but they have seen this as a trend. There is more capital efficiency, and there is more ethnicity towards being more customer focused. So these are two things which as a trend are coming up, and that's interesting for investors. Then second important point for capital for women in AI. Globally, there is a mandate that there has to be more diversity in terms of capital allocation, and there are different pools of capital which includes global accelerators. There are a lot of CVCs, which are corporate venture arms of large enterprises, which focus on providing pool of capital to more diversified companies, which includes women founders. And last and most important thing is that this capital is not sympathy-led. Women that do not need sympathy capital. We are giving capital to deserving founders who are building companies in AI and who happen to be women. So yeah, it's not sympathy-led.
It's fairly invigorating, and it brings us, I'm of course a diversity candidate here among all four of us. So that's something there. But primarily talking about risk and hedging, because that's another area where women per se, or maybe in general, there are a lot of anecdotes as to startups actually getting forming in a year and then maybe gradually dissipating in subsequent years, and then the entire cycle of becoming a unicorn. So can you maybe break it down a bit in terms of how does an idea actually become a startup, and then from startup to a unicorn, and why are there so many anecdotes where whether it's the risk, whether it is the time, whether it's various aspects of finance that come in the picture, or is it, and what is, how does it actually implicate for a women founder who is looking to build the story?
Okay, so India as a story, if we talk about, and especially the story of becoming, starting to build an AI company and taking it to the unicorn journey, we have seen it. The companies, AI companies in India, they are not sitting inside AI innovation labs. They are already deep within the whole enterprise ecosystem, not just in India, globally. We have Fractal. Fractal is sitting inside, deep inside the systems of Fortune 500 companies and helping them with pricing, marketing, everything. We have companies like Locus. Locus is a logistics AI company which is helping logistics company optimize their fleet and taking decision making. Similarly, Unifor is a conversational AI company which has helped globally call centers maybe reduce cost by 40-50%. So we have seen these journeys. So this is not something which we are wishfully thinking that will happen. So this is happening. But how does it happen? See, AI use cases are the most difficult ones because AI cycles move very, very fast. Today you have, and I have actually seen companies, shutting down in 1 year because first year when they started something, that was maybe companies which were doing contents. That hey, we have created a model that we can build content, video contents in 10-15 seconds. Now here comes large models,
right? We have Gemini, we have Claude, and they come with, 10x faster, better products. Then how do a company with such small scale, who's kind of getting into product, compete with such large models? So that is why the capital from the investors for these AI cycles is quite discerned. And they have to, we have to find out what value we are creating, how fast we are. While you are raising money for your company, whatever stage you are, please do not run after valuations, because a higher valuation could be a hindrance for your next round. You have to raise for your next milestone. And next milestone is only 6 months to 8 months from now, because of the kind of AI cycles. So one is about, raising only for your next milestone rather than looking for 2 years, 3 years from now and looking for valuations. Second is also, while you are trying to raise money for your AI company, it has to be vertically quite deep, or it has to be more detailed. And I would quote an example here, Dr. Renu would relate to it. Rather than saying we are building AI in healthcare, that's very generic. Maybe we have to say we built an AI company which is working in maybe radiology or diagnostic, and we cut 40% time, or we cut 40% of cost. That gives a lot of, benefit. So these are the ways in which you have to maybe, because clearly investors would look for return on investments. That is what they need to know. So they need to know how big you can become in 3 years from now and 5 years from now.
Fantastic. I believe the horizon for AI and the deeply entrenched AI mindset in India anyway is very evident. We had the likes of Sam Altman and others, just convening, like less than 25-30 days from now. We have a fair bit of understanding of how AI as a frontier is being looked at through the incredible, investment that is planned through the India AI mission. However, the points that you spoke about, the journey, the aspect of valuation, the aspect of actually not posturing AI across as an optical measure, but actually putting in the problem first and then seeing whether AI can actually solve it. That of course will be a force multiplier in this realm. So as we proceed, we will. So you all would be, amused and pleasantly also surprised to know that a lot of us here actually come from tier 2, tier 3 cities, and a lot of these solutions and models in the AI space is actually being developed there, built there, piloted there, and of course scaled up at these locations. So I'll now move to all three of our esteemed panelists, and then of course take your inputs, Garimaji, on the aspect of the financing lens to tier 2, tier 3 cities in the AI space for founders. However, if we can actually get into two questions. One is, what are the challenges that you currently face in terms of whether it's funding, whether it is technical know-how or skilled manpower, etc., that you face currently in a typical tier 2, tier 3 city when you're actually building your pieces together? That is one. And second, where do you feel that the government or the industry or academia could actually play a role in catalyzing your efforts? So we can start with Dr. Renu and then we'll go to the other two panelists.
If you say about what are the challenges, those challenges is people has to understand in medical industry that it is not a replacement of doctor and an embryologist. These are the decision-making tools. They better work quality and enhance our result and diagnosis. But I have seen in my practice from last 15 years and now, so people are taking it as replacing the manpower. That is not. Second, the data privacy that we are worried on, because in medical industry and in IVF, these are the very patient-centric approach कि हमारा data leak नहीं हो, हमारी identity leak नहीं हो. It's a taboo in current industry and current, I can say, population, current time. People don't want to talk about IVF. They don't want to talk about we are taking treatment. So this is also a second issue with us.
Fair enough. So largely, actually circling back on the same aspect that you had touched upon, on the data privacy aspect of it, specifically when we're talking about numbers. The same two set of questions. I believe, Dr. Renu, if you can also allude to how does the government actually enable you or the other startups in that space for meeting the ends better?
Yes, people are government taking initiative to build the IVF industry and to build the new system in the sector, in infertility sectors. Like there are a lot of government hospitals are offering the IVF treatment in affordable rates. The government of Goa started it initiative. Rajasthan also started this initiative, PP model, and they are building their lab with AI inbuilt lab. So yes, government is taking initiative on it.
Right. If we can understand the space in which you work in, and if you want to scale and replicate your work to other maybe states or geographies or to other even realms in the same industry, what roadblocks you think you would hit or you currently face, and how do you think the government or the industry or the other partners in the ecosystem can help you?
Very valid question, Prakhar. See, we work in finance and audit. The roadblocker which we see is currently the talent pool, specifically in the Gen AI and AI segment. In India, it is actually a fairly new courses which people are trying to understand. We have seen people who says that they are champion in AI, but they are only checking always these available tools when it's come to the writing codes. And writing code through ChatGPT and Gemini actually fails when you goes into production, and that is the difficulty which we also face. Because we are working with data scientists also, we are working with chartered accountant also, we are working with UI UX people also. Every people are now trying to use all those open AI source to work faster, but definitely the problem first is the data security, which we never allow to use that, and second is that these platforms also at a very nascent stage. We need to understand they might be good in LLM, but when it comes to the numbers and coding, definitely it will require some time to give them the predictable result and accurate result which anybody wants to have. You might be looking at the news that somebody might have built a website within a minute by using this all open source web codes. But when you actually use that website, it will definitely crash after certain uses. This is a normal behavior because nobody talks about that. So certainly the talent pool, which is currently not very much available in India. Second thing is the understanding among the people how to use that AI, right? Because AI is always an enabler. It is a tool for you. It is not a replacement. So make them educate that you can use for your reference, not for the end use. We have seen, those uses like Deloitte has been marked for giving the wrong references in their report to a client, or Supreme Court have rejected IT pleas because they have referred the wrong cases because they use the AI, platform to prepare the report. So definitely you can use those platforms for your first reference or maybe a second reference, but definitely the human intelligence will never go at this stage, I would say. And if I talk about the government initiative, the Indian government is really very encouraging all those startups. There are many programs are going on. We are also a part of STPI, which is a platform provided by MITI, Ministry of Electronic and Technology and Electronic. And we get a lot of opportunity because many places they actually display our work. Many places they ask for the B2B meeting where we get the lead. And many places they encourage us for the funding as well, definitely for the eligible startup. So in a way, if we look at the global ecosystem, India emerges as a very good policy maker for the startup ecosystem.
That's very encouraging to other young people who are, attending this discussion. it's very encouraging to hear the role that actually government and the policy framework is playing. A key message that you spoke about, responsible use of AI and humans in the loop still existing, would certainly remain pivotal to our journey ahead. Very quickly, in terms of closing remarks, if you can put in your thoughts on how, what are the roadblocks you foresee that you currently have, or you might have when you're looking to scale up or replicate to other places, and of course, how do you think is the government helping, or what else the government could do to make it better?
Correct. So most of all what Priyanka ma'am said, I would take up 3 pointers and elaborate more. One is using these open source is not a problem, but how to actually use is always a struggle. So as a tech company, we have a very core tech team of 12 people, and one thing that we really struggle is they've used the open source, let's say, and they themselves do not know what's there in their code. And when that goes into production, it's a mess, if that's the case. So we very seriously try to avoid such kind of thing, and talent pool is actually a very serious trouble when it comes to actually building a company in the niche of AI, because at the end of the day, all of us, like I'm a non-tech person, but I also use Claude or ChatGPT, all of this very frequently. But when it comes to building something using AI, it's very important to know what you are actually coding, and that talent pool becomes a very struggle in tier 2, tier 3 cities specifically, because even the good ones that are there, they do not want to stay there because of whatever you would call a work-life balance or whatsoever. So that was a very forceful shift to Bangalore to actually build a core team there. Coming to that last point of this talent pool would be thinking capacity. I think with the usage of AI, one good thing that has happened is obviously it makes your job faster, but people who are building it actually needs to have that vision of going slow, having patience, and still keep building it. You don't need to just put a prompt, get a quick feature into your HTML, Next.js or whatsoever, and then just quickly deploy it. It's the worst decision to do, because you have not put any brain of user experience, nothing, and then you just deployed it. So that's thinking capacity, and actually reading your code is the biggest challenge that we face as a company. And coming to government initiatives, I think I agree with what she also said, that a lot of support is what we get. Being Startup India identified, having that certification helps us in a lot of, from having credits to using those systems into it. So more or less, I think as time comes, we'll become more stronger in terms of supporting the ecosystem with talent pool, and also foundational levels which are built in India. As we see a lot of such foundational levels, LLMs are coming into it. So I think that would be really good. But as of now, I think these are the blocks and how we can actually go ahead.
Thank you so much. Garima ji, any comments on how you see women funded startups or women founders actually taking it forward in the tier 2, tier 3 space? And if you have any leading practice or anecdotes to share.
So I think these are problems at grassroots levels which would take time to be resolved. But at the same time, my personal experience is that I have seen a lot of these state governments taking specific initiatives for promoting their startup ecosystem in individual states. I have personally gone to attend events at Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Punjab, so Gwalior. These are the different governments taking different, bringing ecosystem support. So I think these will take time. It can't be like solved in a few days, few years. It's a structural change that will happen. But I see a lot of state governments not just doing these events, but actually providing capital to these ecosystem. And the way they are doing is, of course, differently. They are promoting people who are building AIFs or building VCs to take money from the state and ensure that 20% of their VC money is invested in the founders from their state. And the most recent example I would say is a very interesting climate analytics startup called AuraShore, which comes from Bhubaneswar, that we just funded. and funded in terms of banking. We also, put some money from our own company, and Nikhil Kamat's fund, Rainmatter, they have given them a biggest check. So, picking up founders from smaller cities like Bhubaneswar, it's happening, but yeah, it will take time.
Fascinating. These anecdotes were lovely. I believe they would help all of us here in the audience and on the stage to get further, ideas to actually scale up the respective work that different founders are already working on. Just to quickly summarize, I believe it was a very invigorating discussion that we had. We heard on varied sectors, right from aspects of supply chain, aspects of health, tech in health, AI in health, then the entire realm of finance and tech working at intersection. We also looked at the enabling ecosystem that the government is actually providing, whether it is startup funds or actually looking at bridging the gap or actually coming up with bridging the entire, or maybe connecting the entire network that is available, whether it is the AIF folks or the VCs with different ideas which are mushrooming in tier 2, tier 3 spaces. Of course, the vacuum stays, or I would say a critical cog in the wheel is to actually have the right talent pool and the thinking hat who could actually get a hang of the patterns, like it was clearly highlighted when we were discussing, to understand the patterns, to knit the stories, to be actually able to deliver value and to have perpetually humans in the loop and actually use AI responsibly stays the way forward. And summarily, I believe for any startup, whether it is women founded or otherwise, I believe access, whether it is to credit, whether it is to technology, that would stay at the core of it. Second, getting the right manpower or the talent pool. And third, of course, wings to actually connect across the globe and take their solutions and add value to the different problem statements. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, distinguished panelists, for being with us. Thank you so much for patiently listening to us. The audience was great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much to our moderator and all our esteemed panelists for a truly enriching discussion, and thank you so much, Mr. Prakhar, for also beautifully summarizing the whole panel. What stood out for me was the intent of these powerpreneurs, that's how I would like to address and call them, who are building ventures that are technologically strong and are deeply aware of the problems they are solving. Thank you so much. Yes, we have Mr. Veer Sagar with us to acknowledge the presence of our moderator and our panelists. Please accept this memento as a token of our gratitude. Thank you so much, everyone. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we will break for lunch and meet back here in this room at 2:20. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you.
मैम सही था 2 मिनट फोन
आओगे ना पीछे रहने तो जहाँ देखो कमांड पीछे से जो आता है वैसे आएगा अगर हो सकता है इधर भेजे तो